pleased to announce that we look forward to a very exciting discussion with this wonderful group of panelists. We're going to start out briefly by introducing ourselves and maybe say a few words on what we feel are the challenges. After that, I think it's almost a family gathering, so it would be great if all of you could sort of join us in a discussion. And I think the more controversial the discussion, the more fun it will be, because if we all agree, it will be no fun for any one of us. After that, let's see what topics there are which are still open, because we can take the advice of such excellent panelists. So I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves first. Anil, would you kindly start?
Yeah, my name is Anil Motihar. I'm the managing director of a company called Key Pharma Limited. We are in the field of pharmaceuticals. We are a medium-sized company in the field of pharmaceuticals as well as in the field of diagnostics, in the sense we supply diagnostic products to labs. We are basically in the biochemistry area, where we supply reagents as well as we do rapid diagnostic testing. That's a short profile of myself.
I am Sanjeev Navangul. I am the director of Merck Sharp and Dohme in India, and I look after all the commercial activities in India and in neighboring countries for MSD.
My name is Bhuvnesh Agrawal. I'm a medical doctor, and I am the chairman and managing director of Roche Diagnostics India, which is the world's largest diagnostic company, and I'm responsible for India as well as South Asia.
My name is Muhammad Abu Khair. I come from Abu Dhabi in United Arab Emirates. I'm the head of the pharmacy, medicine, and medical device regulation section at the Health Authority in Abu Dhabi.
Thanks. My name is Mangesh Hirve. I'm the country head for Sproxil Inc. Sproxil is a brand protection solutions company and which provides anti-counterfeiting solutions targeted for the pharmaceutical industry.
So
we have to know who are in the audience.
Yes. Could you kindly, well, we could actually even go through one by one, but I'm going to make it a little simpler. How many of you are from the technology industry side of it? If you could kindly just raise your hand. So 2. How many are from government? How many of you are doctors? So 4, 5. What group have I missed out? Journalists? Pardon?
Management
Student? Management student?
How about telehealth service providers?
Telehealth service provider. Okay.
That's what we are for.
Okay. Good one. Okay. Any other thing that I missed out?
I work for a diagnostic company.
You work for a diagnostic company. Which one?
Keywork.
Okay. Anybody else will missed out? Yes.
I'm totally new to this.
And what's your background?
MBA.
MBA. Excellent. Yeah. Anyone else we missed out? Okay. So I have a feeling that despite being small, we have a pretty mixed audience. So why don't we start with you? What do you feel are the challenges for pharma, diagnostic, and telemedicine?
Yeah. So let me give a brief background of where we have seen challenges, given our limited experience. So we are targeting the counterfeiting issue for medicines distributed in developing countries. So a large part of our experience lies in West Africa, from where we have moved into India. Now, we look at the challenges in forms of challenges internal to the pharmaceutical sector and challenges related to the adoption of telecom. Now, challenges internal to the pharmaceutical sector, which I was discussing with my co-panelists earlier on, is some of the pharmaceutical firms themselves do run what we call as the third shift, i.e. manufacture extra goods, try to save taxes, try to save whatever. The goods are of the same quality, but they are not the genuine goods. And within the telecom, we think that the evolution of telecom in different countries have given rise to a varied price point and adoption. So in India, the cost of an SMS can vary between 10 paise to 2 rupees, depending upon how you do it. And that makes a big difference to the kind of adoption levels we have.
Okay. So you feel that telemedicine, that is basically, it is the drug delivery, so distribution, but also the authenticity of drugs are a challenge, especially in our country, and you feel that telemedicine or telemonitoring can provide such solutions.
Absolutely.
Mohammed, I'm really intrigued to know what type of things are you doing in the UAE, because that really gives us an international perspective. And where do you see the challenges in the area of telemedicine and healthcare?
Well, I think one of the main challenges that we see is in the regulatory framework are the people allowed to do what telemedicine tell them to do. And it have to start from sometime the government, where they don't have to be the bottleneck, or they don't have to be the blockers. Instead, they have to be facilitator of these new technology, especially the ones that have been proven to be helpful and beneficial to the people. Because many people are scared that they would do things with telemedicine that they would not be covered by law. It may not be legal. It may not be appropriate that they would be sued if they have done it, because there is a perception that the patient can complain and say, well, he did not see me, he saw me from another place. So the regulation is one side, then the education of whether it is the awareness and education of the physicians, of the public, that this is an acceptable, a new technology, and once you can relate it to Skype phones and others, then people are more accustomed to it, because everybody is familiar with going to the doctor to be seen and examined and touched by the physician. And many people, you go to a doctor's, and if he doesn't touch you, then you say, well, this is a useless doctor, because what did he do? He just asked me questions and I left. How does he know that I have this or this? So how do we bring the human touch using technology? And if we cannot do that, then how do we make it relevant to the people so they don't see it as non-real? So I think this is some of the challenges in telemedicine that we have to overcome, not from the technology provider people, but from the recipient.
The acceptability and the acceptance that it's almost as good as seeing a doctor, right?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Sanjeev, what are your thoughts on the challenges that you are facing in terms of technology, telemedicine, and pharmaceuticals?
So, my feeling is twofold. One is that whenever you are selling medicines, you make a promise through your data that you have that this drug works in this fashion, and this is the data supported. But unless you are able to manage in practical life circumstantial situations where the patient goes through similar condition of control as there is in a clinical trial, how do you end up promising the result that you got in a clinical trial? So there is a gap. On the other hand, in resource limited settings like that we have in our country or most developing countries, the resource limited setting continues to put tremendous pressure because of ratios, that the doctor to patient ratio being so and so, that therefore the amount of attention that a patient gets from a medical professional, there is a capacity issue. And this, because of capacity issue, the right and total care is not ultimately provided to the patient. We need to bridge these two ends through some kind of technology. And one of the technology that is really helping everyone is through telemedicine, or through telephonic connection, or using the technology that is associated with telephones. is one way of trying to bridge this gap. And this is the challenge that I have been experimenting with in the last few years.
Okay, can you be more specific on
So,
that? Is it a
yeah, sure.
compliance issue? Is it a?
It's several issues. For example, let me take an example out of some of my past life where I used to deal with dialysis. Now, dialysis in India, world over, can be done in two types. There is a hemodialysis which people know of. Go to the hospital, take treatment, take your dialysis thrice a week and go home. Or there is peritoneal dialysis, which patient does on his own, at their own home or in the setting that the patient is comfortable with. If you look at the economics of these two, you might find that the cost is same. But then you look at health economics, and then you find that hemodialysis is very, very expensive. The costs that come in, for example, is that the patient loses 3 mandates. The costs that come in is the patient never goes alone, is accompanied by somebody who loses mandates. So there is, income loss. There is also the transportation associated with it. So there are other hidden costs. If you add up, hemodialysis becomes an expensive proposition. But when a patient does peritoneal dialysis, you have left the patient to his or her own fate of having learned and done dialysis. I started a call center with nurses all over the country in India. Nurses posted at several locations. Connected the call center with the nephrologists and the nurses and the patient. Now through the patient database, you could always follow up on a weekly basis how is the patient doing. And if you find some parameters not doing well or the patient needing help, the first thing you could send with the doctor consent is the nurse to the patient's home from nearest location. If the nurse can't manage, then you could get an appointment fixed with the doctor and get the patient to the doctor. But in 80% of the cases, the nurse could manage the situation. And the longevity improvement that we saw, and this is not so much scientific evidence in our trial, but the basic data that we saw was the longevity of life in India in hemodialysis is about 8 to 9 months on an average. Peritoneal dialysis being safer in any day in resource limited setting, peritoneal dialysis is better than hemodialysis. So it was about 1.2 years. But with this support, many patients started surviving up to 2 years. So there is dramatic shift by just introducing a telemedicine concept in between. And now I'm experimenting similar thing with diabetes, but we'll talk about it later once others also get in.
Anil, what about you? What do you think are the challenges that we are facing today?
I'll view it purely from the farmer perspective. And the challenges that I see is, first of all, after the patient has been diagnosed by a doctor who's obviously many miles away, and if the doctor has to prescribe to the patient a medicine which could be, let's say, a psychotropic or any medicine which has serious effects, how does the patient get the prescription to go and buy? Because in this setting there are 4 agencies involved. There is the patient, there is the technician involved, I presume, who's doing some kind of transferring the images, to the doctor at the other end who's prescribing many miles away. Now the patient has to buy it at the point of where he's been diagnosed, where he is. Right. And therefore, how does the prescription reach him? How does he go to the pharmacy and say, I want this medicine? How does the pharmacy honor that particular demand without a prescription? I mean, the challenges are, of course, to find some kind of an IT solution whereby the prescription could be transported by telephony or by internet. And even if the patient has a prescription by the internet, given that in the future we are moving towards a situation where the government is trying to clamp down on prescription medicines not being dispensed without a prescription, how will that challenge be addressed when a patient goes with just a, let's say, printed prescription which is received on the internet? How does the pharmacist honor that prescription? These are some of the challenges in my mind as a pharmaceutical company, for which I don't know whether there are any IT solutions that are being thought of, and what are the implementations.
So you see the challenges mainly in the prescription area.
Yes.
How to
On-
ensure that that is a valid prescription and also recognized
Correct.
by pharmacist as well as
That's
patient.
right, that's right.
How about the audience? I mean, sorry, we're not going to let you sit quietly here. Yes, please. So, what's your thought? What are your-
My name is Raghuram. One other issue I see, a structural issue here, as because of the changes in the telecom sector, you see that mobiles being reached to deep rural areas. So if at all the concept of telemedicine increases, do we have the capacity to respond to these customers?
Okay.
Because this is not as structured as your general hospitals or the corporate hospitals like this. It's not very structured. So do we have the capacities to respond?
To respond to it. Okay. We're going to try to make a note of some of these questions, and I'm going to ask the panelists to take it up maybe one by one, whoever would be comfortable in taking it up.
Well, I'd like a short
Yes, please.
responding to the issue brought up.
Yeah. Okay, please.
Where teleprescription, we have an application called teleprescription. So it goes hand in hand with you. So firstly, you're absolutely right. It will take a lot of planning and design and experience to be able to do a scalable solution. It's not going to be a one-off, okay, off the top of my head, I'm a health solution provider, here's health tips every day, and I'll also be able to manage to do prescriptions and chemist and delivery and scalability. So it's going to have to be somebody who spent a number of years working on this and designing it and testing it, and maybe even working with the pharma in conjunction with them to arrive at an acceptable solution. Okay. Secondly, in response to your issue, we have applications designed which all go hand in hand. So you can't do one alone. It begins with a teleconsult. So when you do a teleconsult, that means a patient is consulting a doctor using a mobile health service. Okay, obviously it's well designed so that the background of the patient reaches the doctor first, the teleconsult is scheduled, the patient is then consulting the doctor over the phone. The doctor then decides to give him a prescription. It may be over the counter or not, regulations permitting. It may also include drugs, which are just prescription drugs. But whatever his prescription is, whether it's over the counter or not, it has to be bought. So teleprescription application is then linked to a telechemist application, where the prescription is sent seamlessly to the chemist after the chemist is identified from the location of the patient. Okay, so it's all linked. The data is linked. You can't do a one-off for any one of these things. So it's like a circuit. So then it goes, first the system identifies the chemist, then the prescription reaches the chemist. The chemist then can either deliver and take the money from the patient at his house, or if the patient chooses to come and take it, the way we have it designed, the chemist actually delivers to the patient. Now, it's true that you may not, in the phase 1, be able to cover every corner of India, right? So you might want to begin with a few cities, or you might want to begin only with urban areas, or you may want to begin with one state. But it's perfectly feasible, it is designed, it's possible, and it's scalable. What it needs, the reason it's not live, is that it needs a pharma champion. Okay, so companies like mine, which is called Innovate Vertical Solutions, and our mobile health solution is called Health Hope, they can't alone put something like this in place. The doctors are very keen to have teleconsult. Okay, they're more than happy to participate in that. The users are happy to be able to have a low-cost teleconsult, with a specialist or a leading doctor, so to speak. And I guess the pharma companies, it should be in their interest to have teleprescriptions, right? And the chemists, of course, are jumping for joy at the idea of getting more business and simply delivering the drugs, and they get paid right there and then. So it's much easier for them and relates to their business. So that's our response.
Just to
Yes, please. Please go ahead. Yeah.
follow up with this, in Abu Dhabi we just put a standard for e-prescription. So again, I think for this to happen in India, and as Anish was saying in the morning, if the government say that, you know, this is the standard, now who can do this standard? So at least, or what we heard from the continual group, that this is the standard and everybody can apply the standard. So somebody in the government have to put a standard. And then you will find hundreds of companies who can develop solution to comply with the standard. And the way we are doing it in Abu Dhabi is that once the physician do e-prescription, it go to a post office. That's now, it's at the health authority. But it could be in the cloud, this post office. And the patient, because we don't want the physician to dictate to the patient what pharmacy to go to, otherwise there'll be a lot of conflict of interest.
Right.
And the patient could, you know, he can go to a pharmacy and the pharmacy is closed, the medicine may not be at that specific pharmacy, etc. So they go to the pharmacy, to any pharmacy with their choice, and the pharmacist with the information that, with the patient information provided, he can call that prescription from the cloud, from post office, data center, whatever it is. And then dispense the medicine or deliver it or whatever the reason is. But this is something what we are currently doing. And in the US, where they're doing e-prescription, it follow very similar standards. And I agree, you know, you don't have to do it across the whole country. You can try it in a few places. But this does not require any additional tool. And we, in Abu Dhabi, we enabled pharmacy, we actually mandated to them 5 years ago that they have to have internet capabilities in the pharmacies. So that, because you cannot drive all of these innovation and technology if the healthcare providers are not ready.
Right.
But we are, you know, smaller, but everybody have computers, everybody in the pharmacy have internet. So when we come to mandate these new programs, the infrastructure is there to enable them to do it.
Okay, yes, please. You,
Actually, in developing countries like India, all the pharmacists don't have access to internet. So don't you think that this procedure will increase the cost of expense in the project? Already we are having a low bandwidth in rural areas, they are not internet, but when we do like so, that it would be increasing the cost of expense. So rather than concentrating on the fact that the people may abuse the psychotropic drugs, we should concentrate on the thing that 80% of people will get benefit by these pharmacological drugs.
so any thoughts on that? Since
On
you raised
this,
it, what's
yeah,
your thought?
I would say that that's a very difficult question because, you know, you're saying look at the benefit of 80% and forget about misuse in 20%. It can never happen in the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, first of all, as a pharmaceutical company, you would not want it. You would not accept that. The government would not accept it. The public would not accept it. Because who knows who will be that 20% who gets into problems. Number two, regarding he raised a very valid point, that infrastructurally we have to be ready at the pharmacy level to take advantage of the e-prescription. We're years away from that. I mean, telemedicine is becoming a reality in many states already, but I don't think teleprescription is anywhere close to becoming a reality. Thirdly, on what you had said, in your country and in the US, where teleprescription is coming in, India is a little different because a typical pharmacy in the US or in Abu Dhabi or in Emirates would have not more than maybe 200 to 300 prescription medicines. In India, we have more than 5,000 SKUs. A typical pharmacy has more than 5,000 different products on their shelf.
Well,
And therefore
it's actually, it depends on the pharmacy, but we have over 7,500
yeah.
drug registered.
I know.
But some pharmacy may have 2,000, 3,000.
See,
It's actually
yeah.
a higher number.
because you know when I visited the pharmacies in Dubai, typically I saw they were not holding more than 300 different. I'm talking about prescription. I'm not talking about OTC.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excluding OTC from that. I'm talking about purely prescription drugs. And you know, the number of brands over here, one product would have maybe 200 different companies selling the same generic salt in different brands. Now the doctor may prescribe the medicine which is available in the city, but there is a very strong likelihood that will not be available in the rural area.
You know what we have done actually also, we introduced the generic medicine.
And so I have thought a lot about this as an entrepreneur as to how to make it happen. I completely agree with him on the lines of that telemedicine authority cannot assign a chemist. So the chemist has to be left open. Only a drug can be assigned, right? And so taking Anshul's comment as well, if you look at the availability of technology in the current scenario, everyone has a cell phone. So you don't really need a computer and internet to get that prescription. On the lines of what he described, if a doctor prescribes a medicine for one particular patient in some rural area somewhere, his ID number is taken and that ID number is stored on the cloud. All the chemist has to do is when this guy appears to him, he SMSs the ID number and he gets the prescription medicine on his cell. That's it.
Exactly.
And so, but the thing is that the government needs to impose that this kind of a prescription has to be allowed.
Recognize,
So
yeah.
we have complete technology. I can enable this technically if necessary.
So basically standards for that SMS message
Right.
has to be established. I.e., if I have an SMS message which is say 160 characters long, it has to have multiple things. The doctor sends an SMS to the patient, or the health service provider sends an piece of information to the patient. The patient takes the SMS, tells the pharmacy that, hey, I will SMS it to you. Either the pharmacy has that application on his handheld, or if he has a simpler phone, he SMSs it to the cloud and gets a response back.
Okay. I think so. What I'm hearing, and I'd like to move on after that. You have something to for this same point?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what he has said. Considering recent TRI regulations regarding SMS, if that person is under DND, then how we are going to go about it?
See, DND is
Only
applicable.
promotional messages are not allowed under
Yes,
DND.
you are already
It's
signed
not
for this
authorized
service.
messages.
Yes, when you have application, you already consenting
Subscribe
yourself.
to
If I am
Consenting
requesting
yourself.
for information, I
Yes.
will get it.
Yes,
You can't flood me with information. If I request, I will get it.
Yeah.
when you're getting app in your phone, you're consenting for it.
Dr. Mishra, you have
Briefly, I'll just cover because this session is for pharmacy as well as diagnostic.
Yes.
So, and second thing I wanted the panelists to understand and the audience to also understand, just not equate telemedicine and pharmacy or diagnostics. Let us look at what ICT is going to play the role in basically in diagnostic and pharmacy. So let us take it a broader picture. So you find what is the role actually ICT is playing, and there are models in India itself now. As you rightly said, that it has not really reached to that stage we can go for teleprescriptions. Though it is existing in UK, both companies giving the prescriptions to NHS prescriptions. So we have models overseas, and as one of the panelists said that American, European models may not work in India or any other developing country. All these things are in place. But let us look at ICT, the role that it can play, and that role it's playing now also in this both the segments. So I'm a doctor, so I'm also interested in technology, and I also work for the government, so I know the entire picture. So this is the first time we introduced this particular roundtable in our Telemedicine Society of India, just to bring in the industry, particularly focused on the pharmacy. And as you know, the pharmacy, the budget, that the investment is going to be billions of dollars, and maximum now is $3 billion at the predicting 2014, I think. So there's a huge market for pharmacy. But at the same time, all of us should realize that we are working for the life of patient. Please realize that. And all of you know that how much the healthcare expenditure has gone up. And for a country like India or any other similar countries, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, think about that. Can they afford the cost of the drugs? And as you know, the antibiotics, every day the new antibiotics are in picture, and there are hundreds of antibiotics in R&D, and the bacteria are more clever than the humans, and the bacteria virus keeps on becoming resistant, but there is no end to it. This is a continuous war, and in fact WHO defined this year is the control of infections. So in that scenario, let us see what these things are happening. Let us see where ICT is playing a role. There are something called, the baseline that is, as a pharmaceutical industry must realize, as you have said, quality is very important. There are many spurious drugs. Those are the problems we will address. Can this technology is going to play some role? There are information, use of information to both public as well as the doctors both. Because just imagine doctor after passing the MBBS, the only source of information is your representative who goes and meet them, and in that segment also many of the hospital institute government had made a system of interaction between the company and the medical professionals. I don't want to go deeper into that. There are various issues that are very, very relevant to us and keeping the background actually. So with that, you see the information has to reach how this information can be used. You said that that no, cannot be available everywhere, but a doctor sitting in the hospital has some internet facility. Many doctors have internet facility. Don't you think that you give them information in their desktops? So when in the hospital in Gulf Council, all your hospitals, they have information on the drug interactions on that table. If you have a hospital information system network, you have this drug information. You are prescribing this thing. There is some allergy. Immediately, I have information with me. Before I prescribe, I check at these things. So that information is not available to many of the doctors. It is a doable thing. It is possible to make it. We have a booklet called MIMS, M-I-M-S. All of you know about it, and this is more or less this is a kind of information which is authentic. People take it that way because it is under the surveillance of Drug Council of India and other countries. So can you have such kind of information, which is entirely mandated for the Indian doctors in electronic form? So there ICT is going to play a role. Also, you understand many hospitals have hospital information system or some kind of hospital network systems. So they're only concentrating on the EMR, right? Or many of the corporates are concentrating on the other financial modules. Are we really concentrating on the e-pharmacy module? E-pharmacy is one of the modules which is part and parcel of a HIS module. So can we do something in that? I can give you some examples that we are doing it in Lucknow in our institutes. So what we have done is that in our e-pharmacy system, we do not prescribe, we're not supposed to prescribe by a trade name. There are generic name. The hospital has some system called hospital revolving fund.
Right. What Mohammed said, yes.
So exactly, this is the first kind of thing introduced in a public hospital. And I don't want to go to those kind of issues where drug tendering. And you know, there was a murder of a senior level doctor administrator because of this tendering of the drugs.
It was because of tendering, because in Lucknow, we know
it happened. So I'm not going because all of you are working in India, you know very well, even familiar with that.
Yes.
But so many things are there. The mafias are linked to it because it's a huge business. When there is money, there is threat. So let us look at that thing. But can we make it transparent? Because as I told you, our bottom line is a patient, we're dealing with a patient life. So can we make that kind of system a transparent system? That we have in the hospital across, we have generic numbers. Our hospital purchases directly from the manufacturers, and they have promised that they will give 13% less price what is available in the market. And every hospital you go, you'll find hundreds of shops outside. What accreditation is given to them to open a pharmacy shop? The only accreditation is there has to be a pharmacy degree or diploma to open a pharmacy shop. Is that okay for that? Okay, it's right. But now who is going to play the role of policing? You should part of this thing. You are producing your drugs. You should see that my drugs are dispensed by the authorized persons, right? There are some incentives where most of the important drugs, which are very, very expensive drugs, directly the company wanted to market themselves. They said that no, we cannot buy it from the vendors. You tell your requirement, we'll give it. Baxter, I don't know which company you worked before that. Baxter never sells the fluids, spiritual fluids in a pharmacy. They have their own network of this thing. I'm very familiar with Baxter's group. There's a beautiful example that Baxter can do for India by integrating telemedicine. The way they are doing it, they can really make it more kind of technically sound, so that you can have a very good system for India. So there, I feel that the ICT can play a role. Then next thing I want to tell you about the quality assurance, quality control. We have talked about this, but we have to develop a mechanism how to do that, and the industry has to join hand with the DCI. Unless you join hands with DCI, it's not going to work out actually. Then the next thing I want to tell about the regulatory issues. And the regulatory issues is the only regulatory issue is the DCI. And DCI is a body. There are many, of course, experts in that. But I think the expertise, because as you know, the drugs are coming up every day. New drugs are coming up. Is there any information we can update our information at the policy level? Going in depth to their chemical molecules and all this thing? I'm sorry, it's not there actually. So The next thing I want to talk about the diagnostic issue. This is in the pharmacy. So then diagnostic issue, as you know, that the telediagnostics that we talk of. So I feel that in diagnostic, I discussed yesterday in the roundtable of industry, there's immense market. We have not really explored that market. Like, you know, all the imaging, this thing, are now, previously what happens, somebody wants to open a radiology clinic, it is done by a radiologist.
Yes.
Not by an investor. Now you see how many radiologists opening these things, they are investors, right? In that case, how to ensure the standards of reporting?
Yes.
So can you really network all those devices? Okay, doesn't matter, because we need diagnostic labs, right? All doctors cannot have that money to open these labs. We welcome the investors to do that, but can you develop a regulatory kind of thing that they have to network, because they just employ somebody who has an MD degree, just passed yesterday, and because they don't find those people nowadays. So now that MD person can you diagnose those CT scans and MRI, the complex imaging devices are available nowadays. There is the role of ICT. You network those devices. Okay, you open up these centers, but you have to be mentored by somebody.
Yes.
Then distributing, we got some comment from back side that the distribution this personal health record, whether it is a medical record, whether it is a ultrasound record, whether it is any PACS information, MRI and CT and everything, that has to be really reported properly, authentic report, and you can reach far and wide. You can reach the small towns, whether it is pharmacy, whether it is diagnostic, you can reach very far because the technology permits that. You see, very fast we are going to get mobile broadband in villages very soon because of those problems with the legal thing that is going on. But it is at the next, it is on door. In Pakistan, it is already there.
Yes.
And because of this legal problem, we are delayed in this. Huge market. Government itself is going to introduce all this thing very fast. Then the next thing I want to tell you that you have to think of the way health information is exchanged. So in health information, pharmacy information is also part of this thing, I feel. And I feel that there is a big role of industry in these things. And this is the beginning that we are interacting in the forum. We'll continue this interaction even after this meeting in some other in a different forum. And TS, I would love to go along with you to see that our patients, that is our aim, to give the patient the best diagnostic facility and best drug to them.
So I try to summarize what I understood as what you have said. One is you said, so we have talked about the challenges. Let's focus on the areas that ICT can play a role. You talked about electronic medical records, e-pharmacy. You talked about the fact that it can bring transparency and with that ensure that we have more honesty. For example, you talked about the generic prescribing. You talked about quality control where DCI and the industry have to get together. You talked about regulatory.
DCI, Drug Control of India.
Yes.
Drug Control of India.
And regulatory, where again DCI needs to get involved. You talked about e-sales, which would save costs. You talked about the diagnostic issues, also the question of how can we ensure quality. You talked about medical record distribution and also health information.
Basically, I want to use the medical record your hospital network. I did not talk about the medical record issues, but more importantly, use the hospital network with your e-pharmacy network.
Which could even be something like a credit card, which one keeps one with one. Since Amira has not come, I'd like to take up the diagnostic part if you don't mind. I feel that in diagnostics there are a number of areas where telemedicine can help us. So taking the imaging part first. In Europe, if you want to train, and I apologize if I'm giving the European example because that's where I've spent a major part of my life. If you are aspiring to be a radiologist, you need about a 6-year training. And in that period, you actually diagnose you do the analysis of the x-rays, and a more senior, a specialist who has already received this specialization has to counter-check it. So any x-ray contains 2 signatures. I feel that as a part of quality control, and teleradiology there is an excellent method of doing it because these two do not have to be at the same place. A junior radiologist and a senior radiologist can both see the same image and give their assessment, and the senior radiologist will correct it. So I think that's one way where teleradiology could be excellent. And the same would apply to what we call telehistopathology. Secondly, I personally feel that about 75 to 80%, and there's data to show that, of clinical decision making is based on laboratory testing. And unless that is something which is not available in many parts of the country, their point of care testing and the telemedical transmission of results can probably help us to improve patient care there as well. Fourthly, we also know that across diagnostics, there is a study in 2001 which showed that in cancer, actually the success rate is about 20%, in hypertension about 80%, but in almost all other diseases, the success rate of treatment is about 50%. Which means it's as good as if your doctor were to flip a coin and then give you a treatment based on that. Most of us would not be satisfied with that. I think this is where diagnostics comes in, to actually stratify a patient and then based on that decide on what is to be given. So I feel that this type of, these uses in diagnostics could be extremely helpful in improving the quality of patient care. We have many examples of that. One is for diabetes. We did a study in Germany with children in remote areas who had diabetes. There were no specialists available, so we took a specialist who was about 800 kilometers away. And with that, we could reduce HbA1c. Above all, we could reduce hospitalizations of these children to almost 1/3 of what it was before we used these telemedical approaches. The important part was the diabetologist did not communicate directly with the children, but he communicated through the GP who was managing the children, so there was no loss of information. There was only one source of information. That was the GP. We have other examples for cardiovascular medicine as well, where in Australia, we have an area in South Australia, which is about 1/3 of the size of India. There are a couple of lakh of people living there, and if somebody gets a heart attack there, how do you know whether it's really a heart attack, whether we have to transport a patient by helicopter or not? And they are actually using ECGs and cardiac markers to ensure that the right measures are taken for the right patients, and it's done by a trained nurse. So I think there are a number of diagnostic applications. I'm going to leave the other parts to other gentlemen of the panel so that, because we still have about 10 minutes left before I would suggest that we sum up. So, who'd like to start? Sanjeev, would you like to start with some reactions to those comments?
Couple of things. One is, I think, as you mentioned about diabetes, I'm actually doing an experiment in India.
Ah, I see.
I have a call center operating out of Hyderabad, where there are trained nutritionists, and is run by a PhD in nutrition, so there's high quality stuff there, who have done 800 diet charts of Indian food, broken down to calorific value. They connect a prescription of a diabetes drug with the doctor and actually provide the patient support on monitoring, exercise, reminding the patient on compliance, on diet. And 1 year, in about some data that we have collected clearly shows that these patients do far better in HbA1c, have far better lipid profile, have better controlled hypertension, and certainly therefore in a longer run, and we are trying to do some outcomes data on it, to see the clinical outcome of these patients will be far better. So, and the difference is statistically very significant. But the question I have is, one is using technology to actually take care of how to improve patient care.
Right.
I think in India, one of the challenges that we are going to face is, we should not end up doing this continuously from a patient perspective and end up having a 16% of GDP health cost as US. How much can our technology be helpful to make an impact on preventive health is something that we need to think of. Because all discussion we have had until now is on that a patient is on the table and we are trying to treat. How can we avoid that person to be a patient is something that technology can help immensely.
Just by the way, I consider what you're doing to be preventive care in the sense that
absolutely, you know it is.
Because the glucose values
Yes.
are, of course, they are the disease diabetes, but they are not the problem per se.
Absolutely.
You're preventing the cardiovascular, the ophthalmic, and so on, renal, neurological problems. So,
but with mobile technology
Yeah,
hitting
you're
really
right.
every person in a village, how much preventive healthcare can we manage out of this? We have 54% penetration of polio vaccine in this country. The best vaccine penetration in this country. What does it say? 46% of children don't even get a polio vaccine. If you go to every disease area, our biggest competition is no treatment. market share of no treatment is the highest. Take diabetes, 25% patients get treated, 75% not treated. So who has the highest market share? All the time no treatment. So I think there is, for example, and I have been talking to even FMCG companies, that why can't we collaborate? I tell them that you know nothing about health and I know nothing about channel. But if we collaborate, we can improve educated healthcare buying in villages. And an educated healthcare buying in village could even be hand wash.
Public information is very important actually.
Even a hand wash is, hand wash can avoid tremendous amount of disease.
Exactly. And adding on to these things is, in the recent couple of years, we have seen a lot of financial inclusion initiatives being taken by companies such as Fino, going to the rural markets and just helping people get a bank account.
Yeah.
And the reach which these people have is immense. So ideally, FMCGs may or may not be the right ones because they do not have the right financial incentive for it. But people who are in the business of financial inclusion, people who just go down to the villages, in 1 month they're opening bank accounts, after 3 months they go to the same set of villages and are selling them gold loans or selling them some other financial products on a very, very micro retail basis. I mean, this is just a, delta add-on for them. A few months ago, I met, actually Acumen Fund is one of the investors in our firm, and they have also invested in another company called Mera Doctor. I don't know if you guys may have. Yeah, exactly. So they are partnered with Fino to help reach the masses, where this part of not treated is what they are trying to attack. They are trying to attack a small village with a family of 6 paying, I don't know, like 20 rupees a month with unlimited on-phone access to doctors.
Any thoughts before we enter the final round from you?
Well, no, not really. I came to learn more than to share thoughts. Thank you for coming.
Anything that you would like to comment on Dr. Mishra's points that he was mentioning from your UAE experience, because I think that would be extremely valuable here.
Well, one of the things that we see lacking in the developing worlds in the pharmacy is the patient profile, which is important. When you go to the hospital, you see a patient profile, but the patient does not go to one hospital or to one clinic. He goes to multiple places and multiple pharmacies. So we, again, that need standard to mandate that pharmacy keep a record, pharmacy record for the patient. And we recently have done this in Abu Dhabi through the deployment of what we call pharmacy benefit management. So every claim is recorded and the government gets a copy of the claim. So through something called knowledge engine for health, or it stands for KEH, all the records, all the claims, all the encounters that happen are being recorded. And the cost the government was just putting the standard. And then the companies, the providers have to adapt to the standard. And we think that people don't really have money, but if you look at healthcare facilities, most of them do have money, and they don't have to always, depending on your status, you may buy the Mercedes, but others can provide you with a Toyota solution, and you reach your destination. So we have been able to, that's something that I think with electronic health record, not only in the hospital, but also in the pharmacy, something that we have done recently. And by attending this conference, I start to think of how telemedicine can be deployed in the pharmacy. Because many cases we see a patient cannot afford or don't have time to go to the physician. And with simple cases like what he have been doing with homeopathy, people go to the pharmacy, and for the minor illnesses, if the pharmacists do not have the capacity to consult or in order for him not to really offer the diagnosis or offer the wrong medicine, if he can develop some collaborative management practice with the neighborhood physicians, where they have a network of group that they collaborate for the patient in the neighborhood or in the village or whatever, they can directly consult for minor illnesses, for follow-up type of care, for refill of medication. Because not every patient have to go to the hospital and clog up the hospital system, where you have appointment, for 3 months before you see the specialist. So many of these things, maybe the pharmacy can play a role in them.
Whoever should give me permission, I'll just share very short with
Yes,
comments.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the ideas that we are now working on, and not getting college to launch it, is the health TV, the dedicated health television channel from academic institutes.
Okay.
Because most of these broadcast channels are run by commercial organizations, but we want to launch it from academic institutes.
Right.
It's not an innovative idea because there are a couple of
I know
institutions
in
in
Europe
US.
there are such.
Yes,
Europe
yes,
also there is.
Yeah, so the two things that we're working on, one is the FM channel and one is this thing on television, because we feel there's tremendous role in health promotion we're talking of. Just by communicating with the people, we can change their diet habits, as you say.
Yes.
You can change so many things for which medication is not required at all.
Right.
That is one part. And second part, I want to tell that, when there is no discipline, let us bring some discipline to technology. Why? Because if a resistant bacteria develops because of fault of mind, that is, I am a doctor, I am prescribing wrong antibiotics, that's why I am helping to develop a resistant bacteria, then I am a culprit for this. Who is going to suffer? To just imagine, this nuclear war, nothing. If there is a resistant antibiotic, it is going to be the dangerous enemy for the entire community. Entire community. You do not know what are the deadly bacteria, the hidden, which you have already said that eradicated. Now with your resistance coming down, all those things are going to be the future war. And that's my wild thought actually. The enemy that we are going to face is not nuclear war. It is the bacteria. So I just want to give the last comment on that.
Okay. Anybody else with very short comments before I ask the panel to give some closing thoughts as well? Yes, please. Very short. Yes, please.
I'm Anshul. I'm a third year MBA student from Mahatma Gandhi Medical College, Jaipur. Sir, if these thoughts of telemedicine, even a para of telemedicine is added in a book, then we can get access to it. Actually, I came to this conference because I was reading my pathology book and there was a para of telepathology. And searching the topic, I came to know about telemedicon. And I just came over here. I don't know anything about it.
See the information, how it is just getting this.
Telepathology, so you've come from the diagnostic side. I'm happy to hear that.
Just reading that thing, I came over here. So if these topics are
You're right, from a curriculum perspective.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
That we are working on, then I have to take it to. See, there are, as you know,
But
integrated curriculum also,
but I
it
have to
is
say-
5 years now.
Yes, but I mean, we are extremely fortunate to have Dr. Mishra with us in this session because he is really the pioneer of telemedicine here in India. So thank you very much for your thoughts and
My
comments.
request is to next year also please come, and I would have appreciated if that paper would have presented in this meeting.
Yeah.
So I request you in the next meeting in Coimbatore,
Sure.
please ask your PhD guy who is managing that thing. Because this kind of information is really, this is a fast event, we are very happy, very much thankful on behalf of society. So it's the first time we have accepted an invitation, and you can see tremendous kind of benefit we are going to give to the society.
So there is some data and because
So
it's a
let us
round table,
learn.
we have not
Yeah.
presented. Any other thoughts or comments before we ask the experts to close? Any short 2 or 3? Mangesh, would you like to start?
Yeah. So I guess technology is prevalent. Health issues are definitely prevalent. It's just a question of increasing the awareness and being realistic about what solutions we are adopting. And we as consumers can essentially voice ourselves and make sure that either the technology firms or technology providers or the pharmaceutical providers do cater to those solutions.
Okay. Thank you, Mangesh. Mohammed?
I think employing technology and telemedicine can be cost efficient in the long run and should be encouraged and adapted.
Thank you. Anil?
Well, out of these deliberations, couple of thoughts that have come to my mind. Or let me say these possible solutions which have
Yeah.
emerged. One is, I was glad to hear him saying about a solution called the cloud prescription.
Yes.
So that I think could be one of the solutions to prescription, which I think is worth looking into. Which I personally would say so.
Yeah.
Secondly, I personally feel that the way forward in telemedicine in India, because I mean, as you said earlier, and also the main focus of telemedicine in India is the rural areas and the areas where the patient outreach is not so easy. I personally think the first step should be of some doctors. As we know, most of the doctors in the rural areas are not specialists. They're basically GPs, or and they may not even have full qualification. But they're approved by the government to carry out diagnosis. So the first step could be of somebody in the village tying up with specialists in the main big cities. The problem would be, how would these people know which specialist to tie up with? Are they familiar with them? Do they have the confidence to get in touch with them? And I think there, I would say the pharmaceutical industry can play a role, because we are in touch with every doctor. And therefore, if we can support a doctor in the rural areas to get in touch with the specialists in the big cities and just put them in contact, which would not take place otherwise or for a long time. I think that could be one way to reach out to the doctors and the patients which are within the reach of those rural areas.
Which would also take care of the issue that you had mentioned. Yes, please. Sanjeev.
So, for me, I think I would apply Pareto's law to telemedicine, that 80% we should ensure that 80% of our effort is concentrated on creating preventive health and disease awareness or better health awareness in this country. 20% should be concentrated on treatment.
Well, I'd like to briefly summarize. I think what we heard were in the beginning that there are a few challenges, but what I also feel that everybody, the audience as well as the panel, believe is there are a lot more opportunities than there are actually hard challenges. But what I'm also hearing is, it seems that no stakeholder alone can manage it. Simply because the process is too complex, and to really make it happen, number one, we should take small steps. We should not really go for the sky. Look for simple successes with simple examples like the one that you have mentioned, Sanjeev. Secondly, we have to collaborate. It cannot be government versus private or regulatory versus industry or anything like that. It basically, all of us, the providers, doctors, patients, industry, the government, we all have to work together. Only then can it really happen. I mean, we often talk about that in other contexts. It seems this is one where it's simply required because the processes are complex, it's process associated. Nobody has the reach or the financial strength or the know-how to do it alone. And I think that there are even other things that we have not talked about. I think compliance, for example, is an issue. I know from Western studies that in lipid-lowering drugs, the compliance is less than 33% after 6 months of prescribing, even though patients are better educated there. I have never seen any data in India. If we could monitor that, again, that could go in the direction that you have been speaking about, Sanjeev, about prevention, but also in what you have said, better pharmacy management, etc. So I think there are a lot of uses. I'm really grateful to all of you gentlemen from the panel, from the audience for such an active participation. I personally have enjoyed it very much. Thank you also to you, Dr. Mishra, even though you were not a panelist, but actually we should have asked you to be one. Thank you so much. I wish you all a very nice afternoon. But before we close, I have one small duty to fulfill, which I'll do with extreme pleasure, and that is to thank all the members of the panel with a small token gift. Dr. Mohammed, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sanjeev, thank you so much. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Anil, thank you very much for being a part of this panel. Thank you so much. And Mangesh, thank you so much. For such a pleasure having you here. Thank you. Thank you.
And to you?
I know, she's not there. She's not there.
So I think we must tell Mohammed to hand over this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish you a very nice afternoon. There's still one more session.